The silence in Berklee's Sully Hall was deafening. 200 pairs of eyes fixed on the young black man standing at the center of the stage, his hands trembling slightly as he held the sheet music that had just been thrust into his hands. The paper felt heavier than it should have, weighted down by expectation, by prejudice, by the hopes of everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. Professor Victoria Hartwell stood near the grand piano, her silver hair pulled back in its customary severe bun, her lips curved in what could only be described as a predatory smile. She had just done something unprecedented in her 40 years of teaching at one of the world's most prestigious music conservatories. She had publicly challenged a student not to inspire greatness, but to orchestrate humiliation. Isaiah Brooks, 19-year-old scholarship student from Detroit's East Side, stared down at the title on the sheet music. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, Sun. The Mount Everest of piano repertoire, the piece that had broken the spirits of countless pianists, even those with decades of training and resources Isaiah had never dreamed of possessing. The other students in the advanced classical piano performance class sat frozen in their seats, some with sympathy in their eyes, others with barely concealed schadenfreude. They had watched this semester-long battle between their revered professor and the quiet young man who had arrived from nowhere with nothing but a worn backpack and dreams too big for the cramped practice rooms where he spent his nights. Professor Hartwell's voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "Well, Mr. Brooks, we're all waiting. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to admit that perhaps this particular challenge is beyond your capabilities." The word hung in the air, loaded with implication. Capabilities. Not the capabilities of his training, his preparation, his dedication. The unspoken message was clear to everyone in that room. She was talking about capabilities determined by where he came from, what he looked like, who society had decided he should be. Isaiah looked up from the sheet music, his dark eyes meeting her cold blue ones. In that moment, something passed between them. A recognition. A reckoning. Because what Professor Victoria Hartwell didn't know what she couldn't possibly know was that the piece she had chosen as his executioner's blade was the very piece that had become his salvation. For 3 months, while she had been systematically undermining him, dismissing his talent, questioning his place at Berklee, Isaiah had been preparing. Not just practicing, not just learning. Preparing for this exact moment, as if some part of him had known it was coming all along. He walked slowly to the Steinway Concert Grand, its black surface polished to a mirror shine. Each step felt like a mile. His heart hammered against his ribs. But his hands, those hands that had learned their first notes on a battered upright in a Detroit church basement, had stopped trembling. Isaiah sat down on the bench, adjusted its height with the practiced motion of someone who had spent more hours at a piano than most people his age had spent sleeping. He placed the sheet music on the stand, though he barely needed it. Every note of Rachmaninoff's masterpiece was burned into his memory, carved into his soul through countless midnight practice sessions. He lifted his hands over the key's fingers, hovering in the space between potential and reality. The entire hall held its breath. Professor Hartwell crossed her arms, her smile widening slightly, confident in the disaster she was about to witness. But then Isaiah's hands descended, and the first notes of the concerto emerged from the piano. Not hesitant, not uncertain. Perfect. And in that instant, everything changed. But to understand how we arrived at this moment, to comprehend the full weight of what was happening on that stage, we need to go back. back to where it all began. Back to a young boy in Detroit who fell in love with an instrument that the world told him wasn't meant for someone like him. Back to the journey that led Isaiah Brooks to the most important performance of his life. This is that story. This is 3 months earlier. Isaiah Brooks stood on the corner of Berklee Street and Massachusetts Avenue, his single duffel bag slung over his shoulder, staring up at the imposing brick buildings that would be his home for the next 4 years. If he made it that long. Boston in September was nothing like Detroit. The air smelled different, felt different. Everything was different. The students flowing past him on the sidewalk carried instrument cases that probably cost more than his mother made in 6 months. They laughed with the easy confidence of people who had never questioned whether they belonged somewhere. Isaiah had been questioning it since the moment he received his acceptance letter. He was 19, but he felt ancient. Life had a way of aging you when you grew up the way he did. The east side of Detroit wasn't the war zone the media loved to portray, but it wasn't easy either. It was a place where dreams had to fight for survival against the daily reality of just getting by. His mother, Patricia Brooks, worked as a janitor at 3 different office buildings. She left before dawn and came home after dark, her hands raw from chemicals, her back aching from years of bending and scrubbing. But her eyes, those eyes that looked so much like Isaiah's own, had never lost their light. Especially when she talked about his music. Your daddy would be so proud, she had told him the night before he left for Boston, tears streaming down her face as she pressed her last $200 into his hand. He always knew you were special, baby. Always knew. Isaiah's father, Marcus Brooks, had died when Isaiah was 8 years old. Heart attack at 41, the kind of thing that happened too often in communities without access to proper health care, where stress was a constant companion and doctor visits were a luxury. But before he died, Marcus had given his son 2 things: a love of music and a battered upright piano he'd rescued from a church that was being demolished. That piano, with its chipped keys and occasionally sticky pedals, had been Isaiah's first teacher. His father had shown him basic chords, simple melodies, nursery rhymes transformed into piano exercises. Nothing fancy. Marcus hadn't been a trained musician, just a man who loved to play, who found peace in the keys after long shifts at the automotive plant. After his father died, Isaiah could have let the piano gather dust. Many kids would have. But something in him needed to keep playing. It was his connection to his father, yes, but it became something more. It became his voice when words weren't enough. His escape when the walls of their small apartment felt too close. His purpose when the future seemed impossibly distant. He taught himself. YouTube became his conservatory. Library books on music theory became his textbooks. He would sneak into the recreation center when it was supposed to be closed, bribing the night guard with homemade cookies his mother baked just to use their slightly better piano. Hours and hours, night after night, teaching his fingers to do what his ear could hear, but his hands didn't yet know how to create. By the time he was 15, he was better than anyone in his neighborhood had a right to be. The church where his father had found that first piano asked him to play for services. He said yes, grateful for any opportunity to practice. The congregation would weep during his performances, though they couldn't always articulate why. There was something in the way Isaiah played, a depth of feeling that transcended technical precision. His high school music teacher, Mr. Richardson, had been the first person outside his community to recognize his potential. Isaiah. He'd said one day after school, "You need to think about conservatory, Berklee, Juilliard, places where you can really develop this gift." Isaiah had laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it seemed so impossible. "Mr. Richardson, my family can barely afford groceries. Schools like that are for rich kids." But Mr. Richardson hadn't given up. He'd helped Isaiah prepare audition recordings, fought to get him access to better instruments, written recommendation letters that sang praises Isaiah still couldn't quite believe he deserved. And somehow, against all odds, Berklee had accepted him. Not just accepted him, offered him a full scholarship. His mother had screamed when they got the news. Actually screamed, then laughed, then cried, then hugged him so tight he thought his ribs might crack. "You're getting out, baby," she'd whispered. "You're going to have the chances we never had." But standing there on that Boston street corner, surrounded by students who seemed to speak a language of privilege and preparation he'd never learned, Isaiah wondered if getting in was the easy part. Belonging might be impossible. He took a deep breath, adjusted his bag, and walked toward his dormitory. Whatever was coming, he'd face it the way he'd faced everything else in his life, one note at a time. The Berklee College of Music campus was a maze of creativity and intensity. Everywhere Isaiah looked, students were practicing, discussing, creating. Music poured from open windows. The hallways thrummed with rhythm and melody. It should have felt like paradise. Instead, Isaiah felt like an imposter. His dorm room was small but adequate, shared with a roommate who had apparently arrived days earlier and claimed the better bed, the larger desk, the window side of the room. A note on Isaiah's pillow read, "Hey roommate, had to fly back to Connecticut for the weekend. See you Monday. P.S. Try not to touch my stuff, thanks." Isaiah set his duffel bag on the unclaimed bed and looked around the sparse space that would be his home. His roommate's side was already decorated with posters of famous pianists, shelves filled with expensive music theory books, a top-of-the-line laptop, noise-canceling headphones that probably cost more than Isaiah's entire wardrobe. His own side was empty. He had his clothes, his toiletries, a notebook, 2 pencils, and a photograph of his mother and father from before his father got sick. That was it. He unpacked quickly, trying not to think about how obvious the disparity was. Then he did what he always did when anxiety threatened to overwhelm him. He went looking for a piano. The practice rooms were in the basement of one of the academic buildings. Rows and rows of small, soundproof rooms, each containing a piano and a music stand. Isaiah found an empty one, closed the door, and sat down at the bench. The piano was beautiful. A Yamaha upright in perfect condition, tuned professionally keys that responded to the slightest touch. Nothing like the beaten instruments he'd learned on. He pressed middle C, and the note sang out pure and clear. For the first time since arriving in Boston, Isaiah smiled. He began to play. Not anything specific at first, just letting his fingers wander, exploring the instrument, feeling the action, learning its voice. Then gradually, a melody emerged. Chopin. Nocturne in E-flat, Major, Opus 9. Number 2. One of his father's favorites. He'd taught himself this piece from a YouTube video when he was 13, watching a pianist's hands over and over until he could replicate the movements. He lost himself in the music, the way he always did. The notes became a conversation between who he was and who he might become. The melody line sang with a longing he didn't have words for. The harmonies underneath spoke of home, of loss of hope, despite everything. He didn't hear the door open, didn't notice the small crowd gathering in the hallway, didn't realize that his playing had drawn people from their own practice rooms, students and faculty alike, to listen to the raw emotion pouring from the basement practice room. When he finished lifting his hands from the keys and sitting in that perfect silence that follows perfect music, applause startled him back to reality. He turned to find 15 or 20 people clustered in the doorway and hallway, smiling, a few wiping tears. One student, a young white woman with purple highlights in her hair, spoke first. "That was beautiful. I'm Emma, vocal performance major. You're new, right?" Isaiah nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "Isaiah. Piano. Just got here today." "Well, Isaiah just got here today. You play like you've been alive for 1,000 years." She grinned. "In a good way. Where'd you study before this?" I didn't. Really, I mean, I taught myself mostly." The crowd's reaction was immediate. Surprised murmurs, raised eyebrows. Someone said, "Seriously," someone else whispered, "No way." Before Isaiah could explain further, a voice from the back cut through the chatter. "All right, everyone, clear out. These practice rooms are for practicing, not socializing." The crowd parted to reveal a woman in her early 60s, tall and slim, dressed in an impeccably tailored black blazer and slacks. Her silver hair was pulled back severely from a face that might have been beautiful if it weren't set in such stern lines. She carried herself with the kind of authority that made people instinctively straighten their posture. Professor Victoria Hartwell. Isaiah didn't know her name yet, but he would learn it soon enough. She walked into the practice room as the students dispersed. Her eyes swept over Isaiah with an expression he couldn't quite read. Assessment, skepticism, dismissal. "You're one of the new scholarship students," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "Isaiah Brooks, Professor Hartwell. I teach advanced classical piano performance." She glanced at the piano, then back at him. "I heard you playing. Chopin." "Yes, ma'am." "The nocturne, and I know which nocturne it was." Her tone was clipped. "Your technique needs work, significant work. The pedaling was muddy in the middle section. Your dynamics were inconsistent, and you're rushing the tempo in places." Isaiah felt his face grow hot. The compliments from the other students evaporated. "I'll work on that, ma'am. See that you do. Berklee has standards. Emotional playing is all well and good, but without technical precision, it's just noise." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "I assume you'll be in my advanced classical performance class. It meets Tuesday and Thursday 9 a.m. Don't be late." And then she was gone. Leaving Isaiah sitting at the piano, the joy of his playing soured by her critique. Emma poked her head back in. "Don't let her get to you. Hartwell's like that with everyone, especially at first." But Isaiah had the distinct feeling that like that with everyone might mean something different when it came to him. Tuesday morning arrived with gray skies and a cold rain that felt personal. Isaiah had barely slept. His roommate, whose name turned out to be Preston Whitmore III, had returned Sunday night with stories of his weekend at his family's cottage in the Hamptons and complaints about having to slum it in campus housing instead of getting his own apartment like he'd wanted. Isaiah had learned more than he wanted to know about Preston in 48 hours. Preston's father was a renowned conductor. His mother was a concert violinist. He'd attended elite music camps every summer since he was 7. He owned a Steinway grand piano, worth more than Isaiah's childhood home. And he made sure Isaiah knew all of this, though he couched it in language that was technically polite while being spiritually condescending. "It's so admirable," Preston had said the night before, "that Berklee is really making an effort to diversify, bringing in talented kids from, underserved communities. It's important for the arts to be more accessible." Isaiah had wanted to punch him. Instead, he'd smiled politely and gone back to reading his music theory textbook. Now standing outside the classroom for advanced classical piano performance, Isaiah felt his stomach churn with nerves. Through the door, he could hear students chatting, laughing, warming up on the practice keyboards that lined the walls. He walked in. The room fell silent. Not completely, not obviously, But there was a shift. Eyes turned toward him. Conversations paused for half a beat before resuming. Isaiah had experienced this his entire life, the subtle recalibration that happened when he entered predominantly white spaces. The moment of assessment. The unspoken questions. He found a seat near the back. A few students nodded at him. Most ignored him. Preston was already there, sitting in the front row holding court with 3 other students, who looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog for expensive music schools. At exactly 9 a.m., Professor Hartwell entered. The room immediately quieted. She set her leather bag on the desk, pulled out her attendance sheet, and surveyed the class with eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Welcome to Advanced Classical Piano Performance," she began. "Some of you I know from previous classes. Some of you are new. Regardless, understand this. This is not Introduction to Piano. This is not piano for beginners. This is the class where we separate those who will have careers from those who will have hobbies." She let that sink in. The standards are high because the stakes are high. If you want to perform professionally, if you want to teach at a high level, if you want to make any kind of meaningful contribution to classical music, you must be exceptional. Good is not enough. Talented is not enough. You must be technically flawless and artistically profound. Isaiah felt the weight of her words settle over him like a heavy blanket. This semester, each of you will perform 4 times. Once at midterm, once at finals, and twice in smaller recitals. You will be graded on technical precision, interpretive choices, stage presence, and your ability to handle pressure. The pieces you choose will matter. Choose too easy, and you'll be marked down for lack of ambition. Choose too difficult, and you'll expose your limitations. She began calling names from her attendance sheet, matching faces to her roster. When she got to Isaiah's name, she looked up, found him in the back row, and something flickered in her expression. Mr. Brooks, the scholarship student who plays Chopin. Every head turned toward him. "Yes, ma'am. Tell the class about your training." It wasn't a request. Isaiah's mouth went dry. I'm mostly self-taught, ma'am. I learned from videos, books, church, pianists who helped me. The silence was excruciating. "I see." Professor Hartwell's tone was neutral, but somehow that made it worse. "And how long have you been playing?" "Since I was about 5, ma'am. My father taught me the basics before he passed." She made a note on her sheet. "Well, Mr. Brooks, you'll find that self-teaching, while admirable in its way, often leaves significant gaps in foundational technique. This class will likely be challenging for you. I encourage you to work with our supplementary tutors if you find yourself struggling." The implication was clear. She expected him to struggle. Preston raised his hand. "Professor Hartwell, I've been working on Liszt's La Campanella. Would that be appropriate for our first recital?" Her face transformed. A smile. Actual warmth. "Excellent choice, Mr. Whitmore. Yes, that would showcase your technical abilities beautifully. I look forward to hearing your interpretation." The class continued. Professor Hartwell discussed the semester's expectations, the repertoire they'd be studying, the theory they'd need to understand. She was brilliant, Isaiah had to admit. Her knowledge was encyclopedic. Her passion for classical piano was evident in every word. But every time she called on Isaiah, there was an edge to her voice. Every time she praised another student, it felt pointed. And when she assigned their first exercise, sight reading a moderately difficult piece by Brahms, she made her way around the room offering feedback. To Preston, lovely phrasing. "You've clearly spent time with Brahms." To a student named Charlotte, excellent dynamics. "I can hear your classical training." To Isaiah, "Your timing is off. You're adding rubato where it doesn't belong. And watch your fingering. That's a habit you'll need to break." The truth was, Isaiah had played it as well as anyone in the room. Better than some, but you wouldn't know it from Professor Hartwell's response. By the end of class, Isaiah understood something fundamental. This wasn't going to be about proving he deserved to be at Berklee. He'd already done that by getting in. This was going to be about something deeper and more insidious. This was going to be about proving that someone who looked like him, from where he came from, could belong in the world of classical music. And Professor Victoria Hartwell had already decided he couldn't. As the students filed out, Isaiah gathered his things slowly. He heard Preston and his friends talking near the door. Did you hear her self-taught from YouTube videos? I mean, come on. That's not serious training. Diversity quotas, someone else muttered. I bet his audition was graded on a curve. It's just sad. He seems nice enough, but he's in way over his head. Hartwell's going to destroy him. Isaiah kept his face neutral, his movements calm. He'd heard worse. He'd survived worse. But as he walked out of that classroom and into the cold Boston morning, he made himself a promise. He would not give Professor Victoria Hartwell the satisfaction of watching him fail. Whatever it took, he would prove her wrong. The first incident happened 2 weeks into the semester. Isaiah had stayed up until 3 a.m. working on his first written assignment for Professor Hartwell's class. The task was to analyze Beethoven's sonata, number 14, the Moonlight Sonata, discussing its structure, emotional arc, and historical context. He'd spent hours in the library, reading scholarly articles, listening to different performances, taking meticulous notes. He'd written 8 pages, single-spaced. He'd cited 15 sources. He'd included his own interpretive insights, drawing connections between Beethoven's personal life and the melancholy that permeated the piece. He'd even transcribed several measures to illustrate specific technical points. He'd been proud of it. When Professor Hartwell handed back the assignments the following Thursday, Isaiah's heart sank before he even saw the grade. She placed his paper face down on his desk with a look of disappointment. He turned it over. C-. The paper was covered in red ink. Not just corrections, but questions. Challenges. In the margins, she'd written too speculative. Where's your evidence? This interpretation is unconventional. Your technical analysis lacks rigor. Isaiah looked around the room. Charlotte was beaming at her paper. Preston was nodding with satisfaction. A student named Marcus had an A- and looked pleased. After class, Isaiah approached Professor Hartwell's desk. His hands were shaking slightly, but he kept his voice steady. Professor, I was hoping you could help me understand my grade. I worked really hard on this assignment. She looked up from her papers, her expression patient in the way that wasn't really patient at all. Mr. Brooks, I'm sure you did work hard. The problem is that hard work doesn't replace proper analytical training. Your conclusions were creative, I'll give you that, but they lacked the scholarly foundation I expect at this level. But I cited 15 sources. Quantity isn't quality. She cut him off gently. Look, I understand you're coming from a different educational background than most students here. It's not your fault. But you need to understand that there are gaps in your preparation. I'm grading you by the same standards I grade everyone else. That's the fairest approach. Isaiah wanted to argue. Wanted to point out that his analysis was actually more thorough than Preston's, which he'd glimpsed getting an A. Wanted to ask how citing respected musicologists was lacking foundation. But he didn't. Because he'd learned young that arguing with people in power usually just made things worse. What can I do to improve? He asked instead. Keep working. Attend the theory workshops. Maybe consider some private tutoring. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You'll catch up eventually, or you'll find your level. Either way, it's a learning experience. Isaiah left her office feeling hollow. The second incident came during class presentations the following week. Each student was assigned a famous pianist to research and present to the class. Isaiah had been given Vladimir Horowitz, one of the greatest pianists of the 20th century. He'd prepared thoroughly, created a multimedia presentation with recordings, historical photos, analysis of Horowitz's technique, and interpretive choices. He'd even learned to play an excerpt from Horowitz's famous recording of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, the same piece that would later become central to his story. His presentation was scheduled for Tuesday. He arrived early, set up his materials, and delivered what he thought was a comprehensive and engaging presentation. He played the Rachmaninoff excerpt, his fingers flying over the keys, trying to capture a hint of Horowitz's legendary precision and fire. When he finished, the class applauded politely. Professor Hartwell nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Some interesting points, though I think you may have overstated Horowitz's technical superiority. Many pianists of his era were equally proficient, and your playing of the Rachmaninoff excerpt, while ambitious, lacked the nuance that made Horowitz's interpretation legendary." Isaiah returned to his seat, face burning. 2 days later, Preston presented on Arthur Rubinstein. His presentation was shorter, less detailed, and he didn't even attempt to play anything. He just showed videos of Rubinstein performing. Professor Hartwell's response was glowing. "Excellent work, Mr. Whitmore. Your analysis of Rubinstein's approach to Chopin was particularly insightful, and I appreciate your wisdom in letting the master's recordings speak for themselves rather than attempting to approximate his genius." The message was clear. When Preston didn't play, it was wise restraint. When Isaiah did play, it was presumptuous. The third incident was more subtle, but somehow more painful. Berklee offered several prestigious masterclasses each semester, where renowned visiting artists worked with selected students. Professor Hartwell was responsible for recommending students from her classes for these opportunities. The list was posted outside her office 4 weeks into the semester. Isaiah stood in the hallway scanning the names. Preston Whitmore was there. Charlotte Morrison. Marcus Chen. 2 other students from their class. Isaiah's name was nowhere on the list. He'd known it wouldn't be there. He'd known even as he walked up to look. But seeing it confirmed still hurt. Emma found him there staring at the list. She looked at it, then at him, and her expression softened. "Isaiah." "It's fine," he said quickly. "I'm still learning. Maybe next semester." "That's bullshit, and you know it. You play better than half the people on that list. Emma, please, I don't want to... You know what I heard?" She lowered her voice, glancing around to make sure they were alone. "I heard Professor Hartwell told the visiting artist that she was recommending her most promising students. Students who represented Berklee's commitment to excellence in classical tradition." The words hung between them. Classical tradition. The code was barely even code. "I should go," Isaiah said. "I have to practice." And he did practice. That's what he always did when the world felt too heavy. He went to his practice room in the basement, closed the door, and played until his fingers ached and his mind went quiet. But that night alone in his dorm room, while Preston was out at some social event, Isaiah called his mother. "Baby, what's wrong?" She knew immediately. A mother always knows. "Nothing, Mama. Just wanted to hear your voice." "Isaiah." "Marcus Brooks. Don't you lie to me. I can hear it. What happened?" And it all came pouring out. The grades that didn't match his work. The presentations that were never good enough. The opportunities he was passed over for. The constant feeling that no matter what he did, it wouldn't matter, because Professor Hartwell had already decided who he was. His mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Baby, do you remember what your daddy used to say about the piano?" "Which thing?" He said, "The piano doesn't care what color your hands are. The piano doesn't care where you came from or how much money you got. The piano only cares if you can make it sing." "You remember that?" "Yes, ma'am." "That professor, she might not be able to hear your music through her prejudice, but the piano hears you, and God hears you. And Isaiah, baby, you're going to make that piano sing so loud that even she can't ignore it." Isaiah wiped his eyes. "What if I can't?" "Mama, what if I'm not good enough?" "You listen to me. You are good enough. You've always been good enough. You got into that school because you earned it. Not because of charity, not because they needed to fill a quota. Because you're talented. Now you got to decide. You going to let one bitter woman convince you otherwise? Or you going to prove what I already know?" That night, Isaiah made a decision. He couldn't control Professor Hartwell's biases, couldn't control the grades she gave him or the opportunities she denied him. But he could control how he responded. He would work harder, practice longer, become so undeniably good that even prejudice couldn't deny his talent. He just needed help. Samuel Gray had worked at Berklee for 37 years, longer than most of the current faculty had been alive. He mopped floors, emptied trash bins, cleaned bathrooms, and fixed broken things. Students barely noticed him. Faculty treated him with polite distance. He was part of the infrastructure like the heating system or the Wi-Fi. Essential but invisible. But Samuel had a secret. Isaiah discovered it by accident one Friday night at 11 p.m. He'd been practicing for hours in his basement practice room, working through a particularly difficult passage in Chopin's Ballade No. 1, when he emerged for a water break and heard music coming from the custodial office. Not just music. Jazz piano. Complex, beautiful, sophisticated jazz that made Isaiah stop in his tracks. He followed the sound to a small room at the end of the hallway where cleaning supplies were stored. The door was cracked open. Inside, Isaiah could see an old upright piano he'd never noticed before, and sitting at it was Samuel the janitor he'd seen around campus but never really talked to. The man's hands moved over the keys with the kind of fluidity that only came from decades of practice. He was playing something Isaiah didn't recognize, probably an improvisation, and it was stunning. The left hand laid down a walking bass line, while the right hand danced through melody and ornament, everything swinging with a groove that made you want to move. Isaiah must have made a sound because Samuel stopped playing and turned around. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Samuel was in his late 60s, black with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore the navy blue uniform of Berklee's custodial staff. His hands were calloused from work, but his fingers were long and elegant. "Sorry," Isaiah said quickly. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I just heard you playing and you were wondering what the janitor is doing playing piano like that?" Samuel's voice was warm, slightly amused. "No, Isaiah stopped, realizing that yes, that was exactly what he'd been wondering. "It's just, you're really good." Samuel chuckled. "Come in, sit down. You're Isaiah, right? The kid in practice room 7 who stays till they kick you out every night. How did I clean this building. I notice things." Samuel gestured to a worn chair in the corner. "You want to hear a story?" Isaiah nodded and sat. 45 years ago, I was you. Different school, different instrument. Well, not different instrument, actually. I played piano, too. Jazz piano. I was good. Really good. Good enough to get into Berklee on scholarship back in 1975. You know what that meant for a black kid from Mississippi in 1975? It meant everything. Isaiah said softly. "That's right. It meant everything. I came here thinking my talent would speak for itself. And it did. To some people, but not to everyone. There was a professor named Walter Drummond. He taught jazz theory. Brilliant musician. Also a man who believed that jazz was being diluted by too many people who didn't understand its roots. And by that he meant white people playing jazz was appropriation. But he also meant that black kids like me were too caught up in wanting to sound white. Classical technique. Too much focus on composition. Not enough soul. Samuel's hands rested on the piano keys, not playing, just touching them gently. Couldn't win. If I played with raw emotion, I was reinforcing stereotypes. If I played with technical precision, I was denying my heritage. Drummond failed me that semester, said my music lacked authenticity, said I was trying to be something I wasn't. What did you do? Isaiah asked. I quit. Samuel's voice was matter-of-fact. Dropped out. Figured if I couldn't make it through school, I wasn't going to make it in the real world either. Spent the next 40 years playing in church, in small clubs, at weddings. Made enough to get by. And I've been cleaning this building for 37 years, listening to all these talented kids practice, wondering what might have been if I'd been stronger, if I'd fought harder. The silence that followed was heavy with regret and understanding. But you, Samuel, continued looking directly at Isaiah. You remind me of myself. I've heard you practicing. You got something special, and I can see it in your eyes. You're going through the same thing I went through. Am I right? Isaiah nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Who is it? Who's trying to convince you you don't belong, Professor Hartwell? Advanced classical piano performance. Samuel let out a low whistle. Victoria Hartwell. Yeah, I know her. Been teaching here for decades. Brilliant woman. Classical purist. Also, he paused, choosing his words carefully, also someone who has very particular ideas about who belongs in the classical music world. I don't know what to do, Isaiah admitted. No matter what I do, it's not good enough for her. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe she's right. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Samuel stood up and walked over to Isaiah. He put a hand on the young man's shoulder. Let me tell you what I learned too late. People like Hartwell, they're going to believe what they believe. You can't change that. But you know what you can do. You can get so good that it doesn't matter what they believe. You can become undeniable. How? By working with someone who knows what you're up against. Someone who can teach you not just the music, but how to navigate the politics. Someone who made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Samuel smiled. If you want, I can help you. Real help, not just encouragement. Actual teaching. Isaiah's eyes widened. You'd do that, son. I've been waiting 40 years for a chance to make something right. This is my chance. Question is, are you willing to put in the work? Because I'm not talking about a couple hours here and there. I'm talking about real training. Every night after your classes. Weekends. I'm going to push you harder than you've ever been pushed. Why? Isaiah asked. Why would you spend that much time on me? Samuel sat back down at the piano. He played a single chord, let it resonate. Because you're the student I should have been. Because you have a chance I threw away. And because every time I hear you practice, I hear something I thought was lost. Hope. Real hope. He played another chord, then looked at Isaiah. So what do you say? You want to show Professor Hartwell what a black kid from Detroit can really do. Isaiah thought about his mother working 3 jobs so he could have this chance. His father, who'd taught him his first notes and told him the piano doesn't care what color your hands are. The weight of expectations and the sting of dismissal. Yes, he said. Yes, I do. Good. Samuel stood and extended his hand. Then we start tomorrow night, 7 p.m. This room. Bring your music and your stubbornness. You're going to need both." They shook hands, and in that moment Isaiah felt something shift. He wasn't alone anymore. He had an ally, a teacher, a chance. What Isaiah didn't know yet was that Samuel had already been watching him for weeks, had already been planning this conversation, had already decided that he would not let another talented black kid be crushed by a system that couldn't see past its own prejudices. And Samuel had something else planned, something he hadn't told Isaiah yet. Because if Isaiah was going to prove himself to Professor Hartwell, he needed a weapon. A piece so difficult, so legendary, that performing it perfectly would be irrefutable proof of his mastery. Samuel had chosen that piece years ago, the same piece he'd once dreamed of performing before he gave up, the same piece that had haunted his practice sessions and his regrets. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, the Mount Everest of piano repertoire. And starting tomorrow night, Isaiah Brooks was going to learn to climb it. The custodial office became Isaiah's sanctuary. Every night at 7 p.m., after his regular classes and homework, he would slip down to the basement. Samuel would be waiting, and they would work. It wasn't like any teaching Isaiah had experienced before. Samuel didn't coddle, didn't make excuses, didn't accept anything less than Isaiah's absolute best. But he also didn't tear Isaiah down. When he corrected, he explained. When he pushed, he supported. When Isaiah struggled, Samuel would sit beside him at the piano and demonstrate his old hands still remarkably nimble, still capable of producing music that made Isaiah's chest ache. The first 2 weeks, they didn't even touch Rachmaninoff. Samuel made Isaiah work through technical exercises. Hanon, Czerny, scales in every key, in every variation. Arpeggios until Isaiah's fingers cramped. But Samuel showed him why each exercise mattered, how each one built specific muscle memory that would be essential later. "You got natural talent," Samuel told him during one particularly grueling session of parallel octaves. But Hartwell's right about one thing. You got gaps in your foundation. We're going to fill those gaps, fast. And we're going to do it in a way that she'll never see coming. They worked on posture, on breathing, on using the whole body to play instead of just the fingers. Samuel taught Isaiah how to conserve energy, how to build stamina for long performances, how to avoid injury from overuse. "Your body is your instrument too," Samuel explained. "You hurt yourself, you can't play. Simple as that." During the 3rd week, Samuel finally pulled out the sheet music for Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. He set it on the stand, and Isaiah stared at it with a mixture of excitement and terror. "You know why I chose this piece?" Samuel asked. "Because it's the hardest, partly, but also because it's the most beautiful. Because when you play it right, it's not about technique anymore. It's about soul. And soul is something you got in spades, Isaiah. That's your advantage. Hartwell can teach technique all day long, but she can't teach what you already have." They started with the opening bars, just the opening, over and over and over. Samuel wouldn't let Isaiah move forward until he had it perfect. Not just note perfect, emotionally perfect. Every dynamic, every phrase, every moment of silence as important as the notes themselves. "Feel this," Samuel said, playing the opening melody. "This is longing. This is remembering something beautiful that you lost. You've lost things right. Your father, your childhood, the certainty that the world was fair. This music is about that feeling. Channel it." Isaiah played the opening again, and this time he let himself remember. His father's hands on his small hands guiding his fingers. His father's voice saying, "That's my boy. You're going to do great things." The hospital room where his father died. The funeral, the silence afterward. The notes came out different, richer, sadder. True. There it is, Samuel said softly. That's the real music. Now we build from there. Week after week, they worked through the concerto. It was brutally difficult. There were passages that required hands that could stretch further than seemed humanly possible. Sections so fast that even seeing the notes felt impossible, let alone playing them. Moments of such delicate beauty that the slightest error would shatter the illusion. Isaiah practiced until his hands ached, until he dreamed in Rachmaninoff, until he could hear the orchestral parts in his head and anticipate every entrance, every crescendo, every moment of silence. Meanwhile, his classes continued. Professor Hartwell's critiques continued. The subtle dismissals, the grades that never quite reflected his work, the opportunities that always went to other students. It hurt, but now it also fueled him. Every time she doubted him, he practiced harder. Preston noticed the change. "You're looking tired, Isaiah. Burning the candle at both ends, just practicing," Isaiah replied neutrally. "For what? The midterm's still a month away. You know Hartwell's going to rip apart whatever you perform anyway. Why put yourself through that?" Because Isaiah had learned that the only way to fight unfairness was to become so good that fairness became irrelevant. The midterm recital assignment was announced 8 weeks into the semester. Each student would perform one piece of their choosing, minimum 10 minutes long, demonstrating technical proficiency and interpretive maturity. They would be graded on execution difficulty and artistic vision. Preston announced he would perform Liszt's La Campanella. Charlotte chose Beethoven's Tempest Sonata. Other students selected Chopin, Debussy, Brahms. All impressive pieces, all demanding in their own ways. When Professor Hartwell asked Isaiah what he planned to perform, he said simply, "Beethoven's Piano Sonata, number 23, the Appassionata." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Ambitious. That's graduate-level repertoire. I believe I can handle it, ma'am." "We'll see." Her tone suggested she believed otherwise. What she didn't know was that the Appassionata was nothing compared to what Isaiah was really practicing. Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto made Beethoven's Appassionata look like a warm-up exercise. If Isaiah could master Rachmaninoff, Beethoven would be effortless by comparison. But he didn't tell her that. Didn't tell anyone except Samuel. The night before the midterm recital, Samuel and Isaiah sat in the custodial office after a particularly intense practice session. Isaiah was exhausted, his fingers sore, his mind buzzing with notes and rhythms. "You ready for tomorrow?" Samuel asked. "I think so. The Appassionata feels solid. Then why do you look so worried?" Isaiah was quiet for a moment. What if even playing it perfectly isn't enough? What if she finds a reason to tear it down anyway? Samuel leaned back in his chair, studying Isaiah. "You know what the real lesson is here. It's not about Hartwell. It's about you. You're learning that you can't control how other people see you. You can only control who you actually are. You perform tomorrow, and you play that Beethoven like your life depends on it. You play it for your daddy, for your mama, for every kid who's been told they don't belong somewhere. And you play it for yourself. And if she still gives me a bad grade, then she's a fool, and her opinion doesn't matter. But Isaiah, here's what I really think is going to happen. I think you're going to walk out on that stage tomorrow, and you're going to play so beautifully that she'll have to acknowledge it. Maybe not publicly. Maybe not the way you deserve. But somewhere inside she'll know. And that knowledge will eat at her. Because the thing about prejudice is that it requires believing a lie. And the truth has a way of making liars uncomfortable." Isaiah nodded slowly. "When this is all over, when I've proven myself, I want to help other students like me. I want to be what you've been for me." Samuel smiled, and there were tears in his eyes. "That's why I'm doing this. That's why it matters. You're not just learning to play piano, Isaiah. You're learning to break down doors, and once they're broken, others can walk through." They sat in companionable silence for a while, the weight of possibility hanging in the air. "Get some rest," Samuel finally said. "Big day tomorrow." Isaiah stood to leave, then turned back. "Samuel, thank you for seeing me, for believing in me." "Thank you for reminding me why the fight matters," Samuel replied. "Now go, and tomorrow you show them who Isaiah Brooks really is." As Isaiah walked back to his dorm through the quiet Boston night, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Not confidence exactly, not certainty, but something close to hope. Tomorrow he would perform, and whatever happened, he would know he'd given everything he had. The stage was set, the pieces were in place, and Isaiah Brooks was ready to show Professor Victoria Hartwell the first glimpse of what he was capable of. But this was just the beginning. The recital hall was smaller than the main performance space, seating only about 100 people, but it felt cavernous to Isaiah as he sat in the wings waiting for his turn to perform. The advanced classical piano performance class had drawn a modest audience, mostly other students, some faculty, a few visiting parents. Professor Hartwell sat in the front row, a clipboard on her lap, her expression neutral and professional. She'd been taking notes throughout the performances, occasionally nodding, sometimes writing more vigorously. Isaiah wondered what she was writing, what metrics she used to quantify something as subjective as music. Preston had performed first. His list had been technically immaculate, every note crystal clear, every run perfectly even. The audience had applauded enthusiastically. Professor Hartwell had smiled. Isaiah had to admit, even in his nervousness, that Preston was genuinely talented. Privileged, yes. Insufferable, absolutely. But talented. Charlotte went third, her Beethoven Tempest Sonata, full of passionate intensity. A few minor technical stumbles, but overall quite good. More applause. More notes on Professor Hartwell's clipboard. Marcus Chen performed a Chopin scherzo with admirable precision. Sarah Mitchell played Debussy with dreamlike delicacy. Each performance was good in its own way. Each performer received polite applause and Professor Hartwell's professional attention. And then the student coordinator called Isaiah Brooks performing Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 23 in F minor Opus 57, the Appassionata. Isaiah stood. His legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone else. He walked onto the stage, the lights bright in his eyes, the audience a dark mass beyond the illumination. He sat at the bench of the Steinway Concert Grand, adjusted the height, placed his hands in his lap. This was it. He thought about Samuel's words, about his mother's prayers, about his father's hands guiding his own across an old church piano. He thought about every dismissive comment, every unfair grade, every moment of doubt. And then he stopped thinking and started feeling. His hands rose to the keys. The Appassionata begins with a haunting, brooding melody in the bass. Isaiah's left hand struck the opening notes with a depth of tone that seemed to come from somewhere ancient. The notes weren't just sound, they were feeling made audible. Loss, struggle, the weight of carrying something too heavy but refusing to put it down. His right hand entered with the answering theme, and suddenly the piano was alive with conversation, question and response, darkness and light, despair and defiance. Isaiah had practiced this sonata for weeks, but now on stage, something else took over. Muscle memory handled the notes while his soul handled the music. Every phrase shaped itself naturally. Every dynamic felt inevitable. The slow movement bloomed with a tender melancholy that made several audience members unconsciously lean forward, drawn into the intimacy of the sound. Then, the final movement. Beethoven's Appassionata Finale is a relentless driving force of musical energy. Notes cascade in torrents. The left hand thunders while the right hand flies. It's physically exhausting and emotionally overwhelming. Isaiah poured everything into it. Weeks of frustration, months of being underestimated, years of fighting to be seen. The piano became his voice, and his voice was saying, "I am here, I am talented, I belong." The final chord rang out a definitive statement. No question, no doubt, simply truth. Silence. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, the recital hall was completely silent. Isaiah sat frozen at the piano, his hands still on the keys, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. And then the applause came. Not polite, not merely respectful, genuine, enthusiastic. Several students were on their feet. Emma, sitting near the back, was wiping her eyes. Even some of the faculty members looked impressed. Isaiah stood bowed and walked off stage on shaking legs. As he passed Professor Hartwell in the front row, he glanced at her face. She wasn't applauding. She was writing on her clipboard, her expression unreadable. But there was something in the set of her jaw, the tightness around her eyes, that suggested she had not expected what she'd just heard. The rest of the recital passed in a blur. Isaiah barely registered the final 2 performances. His mind was replaying his own, analyzing every moment, wondering if he'd done enough. After the last performer finished and the audience dispersed, Professor Hartwell asked all the students to gather on stage. She stood before them, her clipboard tucked under her arm. Overall, a solid showing, she began. Some excellent performances, some areas for improvement. I'll be posting detailed feedback and grades by Monday. For now, a few general observations. She went through each performer, offering brief comments. To Preston, technically superb. Continue refining your interpretive choices. To Charlotte, passionate performance. Work on consistency in the allegro sections. To Marcus, good phrasing. Mind your pedaling. When she got to Isaiah, she paused. Every student was watching, aware that there was a particular dynamic between Professor Hartwell and Isaiah. Mr. Brooks, the Appassionata is an ambitious choice. You handled the technical demands better than I anticipated. It was perhaps the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever given him, but it was also backhanded. Better than anticipated, meaning her expectations had been low. However, she continued, and Isaiah's heart sank. Your interpretation was unconventional. Some of your dynamics were overly dramatic. Your tempo in the second movement dragged, and there were moments where emotion overrode discipline. The other students shifted uncomfortably. Isaiah kept his face neutral. Music at this level requires more than feeling Mr. Brooks. It requires control, restraint, respect for the composer's intentions. I encourage you to study more professional interpretations before your next performance. She moved on to the final students, but Isaiah barely heard. The message was clear. Even when he played well, it wasn't the right kind of well. Even when he exceeded expectations, the expectations themselves were used against him. After the debriefing, the students dispersed. Preston clapped Isaiah on the shoulder with what might have been genuine sympathy. "Hey man, you played great. Don't let her get to you." But it did get to him. How could it not? He went straight to the basement, to the custodial office. Samuel was there, cleaning equipment organized around him. Waiting. "How'd it go?" Samuel asked, though he'd been in the back of the recital hall watching. "You were there. You heard her. I heard her words. But I also heard your music. And son, your music was transcendent. That's a word I don't use lightly. You moved people. You made them feel something real. That's what matters." "Then why does it hurt so much that she couldn't acknowledge it?" Samuel sat down heavily. "Because you're human. Because you want her approval, even though you know it's not freely given. Because we all want to believe that excellence speaks for itself. But here's the truth, Isaiah. Excellence isn't always enough to overcome bias. Sometimes you have to be so much better than excellent that bias becomes irrelevant. That's not fair. It's not right. But it's reality. The grades come out. Monday, Isaiah said quietly. What if she gives me a low grade? What if playing my heart out wasn't enough? Then we keep working. We keep building. Because the midterm isn't the final battle. It's just a skirmish. And son, I've been thinking. When's the final recital end of semester? About 8 weeks from now. Samuel's eyes gleamed with something Isaiah couldn't quite identify. 8 weeks. That's enough time. We've been working on Rachmaninoff for 6 weeks now. You've got the first movement pretty solid. The second movement is coming along. If we push, really push, you could have the whole concerto ready. Isaiah's eyes widened. The whole thing? That's Samuel. That's 40 minutes of music. Some of the hardest piano music ever written. I know exactly what it is, and I know exactly what you're capable of. The question is, do you believe it? Isaiah thought about the Appassionata, how it had felt to channel everything into music, how it had felt to know, absolutely know that he'd played it as well as it could be played, and how it had felt to have that diminished by someone who couldn't see past her own prejudices. What would I even do with the Rachmaninoff? I can't perform a concerto. That requires an orchestra. Samuel smiled slowly. Let me worry about that. You just worry about learning it. Every note, every phrase, every emotional arc. Because when the time comes, when the moment is right, you're going to need to be ready to play it perfectly. Can you do that? Isaiah felt something stirring in his chest. Not just hope, determination, defiance. Yes. Yes, I can. Then that's what we do. Starting tonight, we go all in on Rachmaninoff and Isaiah. When you play this piece, when you master it, nobody will be able to deny your talent. Not even Victoria Hartwell. They worked until 2 in the morning that night, and every night after. The Appassionata had been preparation. Rachmaninoff was the real test, the real weapon, and Isaiah Brooks was learning to wield it. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Isaiah woke early, unable to sleep, his mind churning with anticipation and dread. The midterm grades would be posted outside Professor Hartwell's office at 9 a.m. He debated not going. What difference did it make? He knew the grade wouldn't reflect his performance. Knowing that ahead of time should have made it easier. But it didn't. At 8:55, he found himself standing in the hallway outside her office, along with a dozen other students from the class. Preston was there, confident as always. Charlotte looked nervous but hopeful. Marcus was chatting with another student, seemingly unconcerned. At exactly 9 a.m., Professor Hartwell emerged from her office and pinned a single sheet of paper to the bulletin board. Then she returned to her office without a word. The students crowded around the board. Isaiah hung back, letting others go first. He heard Preston's satisfied, "Yes," Charlotte's relieved laugh. Marcus's quiet, "Not bad." Then Emma, who'd been in the recital as an observer, pushed through the crowd and grabbed Isaiah's arm. "You need to see this," she said, her voice tight with anger. Isaiah approached the board, scanned the list of names and grades. Preston Whitmore, a Charlotte Morrison, A. Marcus Chen, A. Sarah Mitchell, B+, David Sullivan, B+, and there near the bottom, Isaiah Brooks, B, the same grade he'd gotten on the Beethoven analysis paper, despite playing a piece that was objectively more difficult than what anyone else had performed, despite a performance that had moved audience members to tears. B-. Isaiah felt the hallway tilt slightly. He'd known it was coming, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. "This is bullshit," Emma said loudly. Several students turned to look. "You played better than half these people. Better than Preston, honestly, and I'll say that to his face." "Hey," Preston protested, but without much heat. Even he looked uncomfortable with the grade disparity. Charlotte stepped closer. "Isaiah, you should contest this. Go to the department chair. This isn't right." But Isaiah knew better. Contesting grades rarely went well for students, especially when contesting them against established professors. It would just make him look like a troublemaker, like someone who couldn't accept fair criticism, even though there was nothing fair about any of this. "It's fine," he said, his voice flat. "It's just one grade." "It's not fine," Emma insisted. "She's been targeting you all semester. Everyone can see it." "Seeing it and proving it are different things," Isaiah replied. He pulled away from the crowd and walked toward the exit. He made it halfway across campus before the anger really hit. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, clarifying kind. The kind that focused everything into a single point of determination. She wanted to grade him down fine. He'd study harder. She wanted to diminish his performances fine. He'd practice until his playing was undeniable. She wanted to push him out. She'd have to try harder than this. He went to the library, pulled out every book on Rachmaninoff he could find, and spent 6 hours reading about the composer's life, his technique, his interpretive philosophy. He watched videos of famous performances. He studied the orchestral score, learning every instrumental part so he could hear the full picture in his mind. That night he met Samuel at 7 p.m. sharp, as always. "I saw the grades," Samuel said without preamble. "B-", Isaiah said. "For a performance that was better than anything she's heard from a first-semester student in years." "I know. I was there." "So, what do we do?" Samuel pulled out the score for Rachmaninoff's third. "We do what we've been doing. We make you so good that grades become irrelevant. You ready to work? More than ready." They dove into the second movement that night, the intermezzo. After the manic intensity of the first movement, the intermezzo is contemplative, almost meditative. But it's no less difficult. The inner voices require perfect control. The phrasing must breathe naturally, despite complex rhythmic patterns. This movement is about what happens after the storm, Samuel explained. The first movement is chaos and passion. This is reflection, processing, understanding. You know that feeling when something terrible happens, and for a while you're just numb. You're functioning, but not really there. That's this movement. Isaiah played the opening bars, trying to capture that sense of emotional aftermath. Good, but you're still thinking too much. Feel it. When your father died, what were the weeks after like? Isaiah's hands paused on the keys. Gray. Everything felt gray. I went to school, did my homework, ate dinner, but it was like watching myself from outside. Like I wasn't really in my body. Play it again with that. This time the notes came out different, more distant, more internal, like music heard through water. "There," Samuel said softly. "That's the real sound. That's what Rachmaninoff wanted." They worked until midnight. Isaiah's fingers ached, but it was a good ache. The ache of building something. As he walked back to his dorm, his phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "How'd the grades come out, baby?" He stared at the message. He could lie. Tell her he'd done well. Save her the worry? But his mother had always been able to detect his lies, even over the phone. He called her instead. "Mama, Isaiah. Tell me. B-." Silence on the other end. Then, "For the Beethoven you played your heart out on." "Yes, ma'am. And other students got higher grades for easier pieces." "Yes, ma'am." More silence. When she spoke again, her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "Baby, I want you to listen to me very carefully. That grade doesn't define your playing. It defines her character. You understand me? You played beautiful. I know you did. Don't let her make you doubt yourself. I'm trying not to, Mama. You more than try. You keep your head up. Keep practicing. Keep being excellent. Because excellence has a way of speaking louder than any grade. Your daddy used to say that cream rises to the top. Sometimes it takes a while, but it always rises. You're cream, baby. You're rising. Don't you forget it." After they hung up, Isaiah stood in the cold Boston night, looking up at the stars barely visible through the city lights. He thought about cream rising, about Samuel's belief in him, about the Rachmaninoff waiting to be mastered. And he made a promise to himself. Not just to prove Professor Hartwell wrong, but to prove himself right. To prove that he belonged in this world of classical music not because anyone gave him permission, but because his talent demanded space. 8 weeks until the final recital. 8 weeks to master the Mount Everest of piano repertoire. 8 weeks to prepare for the performance that would change everything. He walked back to his dorm, pulled out the Rachmaninoff score, and studied it until dawn. When Preston came back from whatever party he'd been at and complained about the reading light, Isaiah put on headphones and kept studying. Because excellence doesn't sleep, and Isaiah Brooks was determined to be excellent. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of classes practice and more practice. Isaiah existed in a strange dual reality. In one reality, he was a Berklee student attending lectures, completing assignments, navigating the social dynamics of college life. In the other reality, he was a warrior in training, preparing for a battle that nobody but Samuel knew was coming. Professor Hartwell's class continued to be a minefield. She wasn't overtly hostile, which somehow made it worse. She was professionally distant, her critiques always technically defensible, even when they felt personally targeted. She praised other students' work with warmth that never quite reached Isaiah. She offered opportunities to everyone but him. The pattern was so consistent that even some of the other students started noticing. One day after class, Charlotte pulled Isaiah aside. "Hey, I just wanted to say, I see what's happening. It's not right." Isaiah gave her a tired smile. "Thanks, but there's not much anyone can do about it. I could say something. File a complaint with the department. Please don't." Isaiah's voice was gentle, but firm. That would just make it worse. She'd deny everything and then I'd be labeled a troublemaker. "I appreciate you seeing it, though. That matters." Charlotte nodded reluctantly. "For what it's worth, you're the most talented pianist in that class, including Preston, and he's been playing since he was 4. "Preston is very good," Isaiah said diplomatically. "Preston is technically proficient. You make people feel something. There's a difference." After she left, Isaiah thought about that distinction. Technical proficiency versus emotional truth. It was the same critique Professor Hartwell leveled at him, but framed as a weakness. She wanted technical perfection without emotional excess, but Rachmaninoff required both. Maybe that's why Samuel had chosen it. In their nightly sessions, the Rachmaninoff was coming together piece by piece. The first movement was solid now, every note memorized, every phrase shaped with intention. The second movement was improving daily. The third movement, the ossia cadenza, was still brutally difficult, but Isaiah could see the path forward now. "You're getting close," Samuel said one night in late October. They were 10 weeks into the semester now. The final recital was 6 weeks away. The notes are there. Now we have to make them sing. How do I do that? You stop thinking about Rachmaninoff and start thinking about yourself. This concerto, it's about exile, about longing for home, about carrying your homeland in your heart, even when you can't go back. Rachmaninoff wrote this after he left Russia. He was homesick for a place that didn't exist anymore. You understand that feeling. Isaiah thought about Detroit, about the neighborhood where he grew up, which was changing, gentrifying, pushing out the people who'd lived there for generations. About how even when he went back, it felt different, like he was visiting a memory instead of a place. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I understand." Then play from that understanding. Isaiah played the main theme of the first movement again, but this time he thought about his mother's small apartment, the church where his father had found that first piano, the corner store where Mr. Hassan would give him free snacks when Patricia couldn't afford them, the rec center basketball court where he'd spent summer evenings. All the textures of home that existed in his memory, but were already starting to fade in reality. The music that came out wasn't just notes. It was longing made audible. "That's it," Samuel said, his voice thick with emotion. "That's the real music. You keep playing like that, and nobody can touch you." But Isaiah knew that wasn't quite true. Technical perfection could be measured. Emotional truth could be dismissed as subjective. He needed both to be absolutely undeniable. The final recital assignment was announced in mid-November. Professor Hartwell stood before the class with her usual stern expression. "Your final performance will constitute 50% of your semester grade. You will each perform a piece of your choosing, minimum 15 minutes in length, representing the highest level of difficulty you can successfully execute. This is your opportunity to demonstrate everything you've learned this semester." She paused, and something in her expression shifted. "Additionally, I will be personally challenging one student to perform a piece of my choosing. This is a tradition I sometimes employ to push someone beyond their perceived limitations." The class stirred with nervous energy. Being challenged could be an opportunity or a curse depending on the piece and the professor's intent. "I'll announce the challenged student and piece 2 weeks before the recital. Until then, choose your pieces wisely. Remember, I'm evaluating not just your execution, but your judgment. Choose too easy, and you undersell yourself. Choose too hard, and you reveal your limitations." As students started discussing their choices, Isaiah's heart was pounding. He knew with absolute certainty that he would be the one challenged. The whole semester had been building to this. Professor Hartwell's systematic undermining, her constant suggestions that he was out of his depth, her belief that he didn't belong at Berklee. This would be her coup de grace. A piece so difficult that his failure would justify everything she'd been saying all semester. And he knew exactly what piece she would choose. After class, he went straight to the basement. Samuel was already there waiting. "She's going to challenge me," Isaiah said without preamble. "And she's going to give me Rachmaninoff's third." Samuel leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out. You're right, of course. It's the perfect weapon. Impossible to play perfectly even for masters. She can point to any minor imperfection as proof that you overreached. And if you decline the challenge, she can say you knew your limitations. But she doesn't know I've been preparing it for months." "No, she doesn't?" And son, that's going to be the sweetest surprise she's ever had. The look on her face when you sit down and play it flawlessly, that's going to be worth every minute we've spent in this room." Isaiah sat down at the old upright piano. "I need it to be perfect, not just good, not just impressive. Perfect. Then we have 6 weeks to get there. And Isaiah, we're going to make it perfect. I promise you that." The final push began that night. They worked through every section of the concerto, polishing each phrase until it gleamed. Samuel was relentless, stopping Isaiah mid-passage to adjust a dynamic, refine, a phrase perfect, a trill. They worked on stamina, on pacing, on how to conserve energy through the 40-minute marathon of the full concerto. "Your body is going to want to give out around minute 30, Samuel explained. "That's when mental toughness matters. That's when you have to play through pain without showing it. That's when amateurs fall apart and professionals push through." They practiced performing under pressure. Samuel would suddenly yell in the middle of a passage, simulating distraction. Would make Isaiah play the same section 20 times in a row until muscle memory was so deep that conscious thought became unnecessary. Would have him play the piece in different emotional states, tired, energized, angry, sad, until he could access any interpretation at will. "The piece has to be in your bones," Samuel said. "When you walk out on that stage, you can't be thinking about notes. You have to be feeling the music. And the only way to do that is to make the notes so automatic that your conscious mind is free to be artistic." 3 weeks before the final recital, the announcement came. Professor Hartwell posted a notice outside her office. "The challenged student for the final recital is Isaiah Brooks. He will perform Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 in D minor. A recorded orchestral accompaniment will be provided." Students gathered around the notice, murmuring, "Rachmaninoff's Third. Is she serious? That's brutal. That's like professional level, graduate school level. She's trying to destroy him." Preston actually looked concerned when he found Isaiah in the hallway. "Man, I don't know what you did to piss her off, but this is excessive. You should complain to the department chair. This is unreasonable." "It's fine," Isaiah said calmly. "I'll do my best." What he didn't say was that his best had been prepared for exactly this moment. That every night for months, he and Samuel had been building toward this. That Professor Hartwell had just handed him the perfect opportunity to prove himself. That night, Samuel and Isaiah didn't practice. Instead, Samuel took him to a small jazz club in Cambridge, where he sometimes sat in with the band. They sat in a dark corner booth, nursing sodas, listening to music. "Tomorrow we go into overdrive," Samuel said. 3 weeks of intense, focused work. But tonight we rest. We remember why we love music in the first place, not to prove anything to anyone, just because it's beautiful and it matters. The band was playing a mellow version of Round Midnight. The pianist, a woman in her 50s with gray locks, played with an effortless fluidity that made Isaiah's chest ache with admiration. "You see how she plays," Samuel said quietly. "She's not thinking about technique. She's not worried about judgment. She's just being present with the music. That's what you need to channel. When you sit down at that piano for your recital, yes, you need the technical perfection. But more than that, you need to be present. To be true. To let the music flow through you instead of trying to control every note. What if I mess up? What if my fingers slip or my memory fails? Then you keep playing. You recover. You make the stumble part of the interpretation. Perfection isn't about 0 mistakes. It's about making whatever happens feel intentional. The audience doesn't have the score in front of them. They don't know what's supposed to happen. They only know what does happen. You make what happens beautiful, and they'll never know the difference. Isaiah absorbed this wisdom, watching the pianist lose herself in the music. "Samuel," he said after a while, "whatever happens, thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for spending all these hours teaching me." Samuel's eyes glistened in the low light of the club. "Thank you for giving an old man a reason to believe his story isn't over yet. When you play that Rachmaninoff, you're not just playing for yourself. You're playing for every student who was told they didn't belong, for every talent that was dismissed because of what people looked like or where they came from. You're playing for me for the career I never had. And son, you're going to be magnificent." They sat in that club until midnight, listening to music, gathering strength for the final push. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks until Isaiah Brooks would walk onto a stage and play the most difficult piano piece in the repertoire. 3 weeks until Professor Victoria Hartwell would discover that she'd drastically underestimated the young man she'd been trying to break all semester. The countdown had begun. The morning of the final recital, Isaiah woke before dawn. He hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out of a restless half-consciousness where fragments of Rachmaninoff's themes played on loop in his mind. His hands twitched under the blankets, phantom-playing passages he'd practiced 10,000 times. Preston was still asleep, snoring softly. The dorm room was dark and quiet, except for the early morning sounds of a college campus waking up. Somewhere down the hall, someone's alarm was going off, ignored. Outside, a garbage truck rumbled past. Isaiah got up quietly and went to the bathroom. In the mirror, he barely recognized himself. He'd lost weight over the semester, his cheekbones more pronounced, his eyes holding an intensity that hadn't been there 4 months ago. He looked older, felt older. He splashed water on his face and thought about the day ahead. The recital wasn't until 7 p.m. 13 hours away. How was he supposed to fill 13 hours without losing his mind? His phone buzzed. A text from Samuel. "How you feeling?" Isaiah typed back, terrified. "Good. Means you care. Come by at noon. We'll do a light run-through. Don't practice too much today. Save your energy." Another text from his mother. "Baby, I wish I could be there. I'm praying for you. You're going to be amazing. I know it. Your daddy knows it. Now you need to know it." His mother couldn't afford to fly to Boston. They both knew that. Isaiah had told her not to worry about it, that there would be other performances. But part of him desperately wished she could be there. Wished his father could be there. He responded, "Love you, Mama. Thank you for everything." The morning crept by. Isaiah tried to eat breakfast but couldn't manage more than toast and orange juice. His stomach was in knots. He went for a walk around campus trying to calm his nerves, but every building reminded him of the journey that had led to this moment. The classroom where Professor Hartwell had first dismissed his playing. The practice room where he'd met Samuel. The library where he'd spent countless hours studying Rachmaninoff's life and music. The administrative building where he'd seen his name on the scholarship list, barely believing it was real. At noon, he went to the basement to the custodial office that had become his sanctuary. Samuel was there with coffee and a knowing smile. "Sit down. Breathe. Tell me what's going through your head." "Too much," Isaiah admitted. "I keep running through the piece mentally and second-guessing everything. Is my tempo right for the second movement? Should I take that phrase faster? What if I stumble in the ossia cadenza? What if— Stop!" Samuel's voice was gentle but firm. "You're doing exactly what I told you not to do. You're overthinking. The piece is in your fingers. It's in your muscle memory. It's in your heart. Trust that. Trust yourself. They did a light run-through, just the opening of each movement. Isaiah's hands felt stiff at first, but Samuel made him do stretches exercises to loosen up. Gradually, the music started to flow naturally again. "There you go," Samuel said. "That's what you need tonight. Not forced perfection, natural excellence. The music flowing through you like it was always meant to." At 2 p.m., Samuel sent him back to his dorm to rest. "Take a nap. Or try to. Just lie down and rest your body. You're going to need every ounce of energy tonight." Isaiah tried. He lay in his bed listening to Preston getting ready for his own performance. He was playing Chopin's heroic Polonaise and attempted to quiet his mind. He must have dozed off because the next thing he knew, it was 4:30, and Preston was shaking his shoulder. "Hey man, you should start getting ready. Recital's at 7. You okay? You look kind of pale." Isaiah sat up, his heart immediately racing. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just resting." Preston hesitated, then said something surprising. "Look, I know Hartwell and I know she favors students like me. I'm not blind. And I know what she's doing to you isn't fair. But for what it's worth, I've heard you practicing. Late at night when you think nobody's listening. You're really good, Isaiah. Better than you give yourself credit for. Whatever happens tonight, you should be proud of yourself." It was the most genuine thing Preston had ever said to him. Isaiah felt unexpected gratitude. "Thanks, man. That means a lot. Now go destroy that Rachmaninoff." Isaiah showered, shaved, and put on the one suit he owned. It wasn't expensive, bought from a thrift store in Detroit, but his mother had taken it to a tailor who'd adjusted it to fit perfectly. He looked at himself in the mirror, adjusting his tie. This was it. Everything he'd worked for, everything Samuel had taught him, everything his parents had sacrificed for. All of it came down to the next few hours. His phone buzzed. "Emma, we're all rooting for you. You're going to kill it." Another text from Samuel. "See you backstage. Remember, you belong here. Act like it." At 6:15, Isaiah walked across campus to Sully Hall. The recital was being held in the main performance space, this time not the smaller recital room. The hall seated 400 people. It would be the biggest audience Isaiah had ever played for. Students were already arriving, filing into the hall in their concert attire. Faculty members chatted in small groups. Isaiah saw the Dean of Music talking with Professor Hartwell near the entrance. She looked confident, composed. Why wouldn't she be? She'd set this trap so carefully. Isaiah went backstage. The other performers were there in various states of nervousness and preparation. Charlotte was doing breathing exercises. Marcus was reviewing his sheet music even though he'd surely memorized it weeks ago. Sarah was pacing. And there in the corner was Samuel. Not in his custodial uniform, but in a sharp black suit, looking distinguished and proud. He'd put on a performance as well, Isaiah realized. Tonight he wasn't the janitor. He was what he should have been all along. A musician. A teacher. A master. Samuel caught Isaiah's eye and nodded toward a quiet corner. They stepped away from the others. "How you feeling?" Samuel asked. "Like I might throw up." "Perfect. That's the energy you need. Channel it into the performance. Fear and excitement are the same emotion, just pointed in different directions. Point it at the music. What if I forget something? What if my hands shake? What if Samuel put his hands on Isaiah's shoulders? Look at me. You have played this piece perfect or near perfect 20 times in the last 3 weeks. Your body knows what to do. Your mind knows what to do. Your heart definitely knows what to do. The only thing that can stop you now is doubt. and I'm not going to let you doubt. You hear me?" Isaiah nodded. "Say it. Say, 'I can do this. I can do this.' Say it like you believe it. 'I can do this.' One more time, with conviction. 'I can do this.'" A few other performers looked over, startled. Isaiah didn't care. Samuel grinned. "That's my student. Now I'm going to go sit in the audience. I want to see Professor Hartwell's face when you play. And Isaiah, whatever happens out there, I'm proud of you. You've already exceeded every dream I ever had. The performance is just confirmation." They hugged quick and tight. Then Samuel was gone, leaving Isaiah alone with his thoughts and his preparation. At 6:45, the stage manager called the performers together. "We're about to start. The order is posted backstage. When your name is called, you'll be introduced. Walk out confidently. Take your time settling at the piano. Perform, bow. Exit stage, right?" Questions. Isaiah checked the performance order. He was last. Of course he was. Professor Hartwell wanted maximum dramatic impact. Wanted everyone to be warmed up and focused so there would be no excuses, no reasons to dismiss what was about to happen. The recital began. Isaiah watched from the wings as his classmates performed. Preston's Chopin was technically dazzling. Charlotte's Brahms was passionate and powerful. Marcus played Debussy with beautiful subtlety. Each performance was strong. These were talented musicians, every one of them. But none of them were playing Rachmaninoff's Third. As the evening progressed, Isaiah could feel his nervous energy transforming. It wasn't fear anymore. It was focus, clarity, purpose. He found a quiet corner backstage and closed his eyes, playing through the concerto in his mind. Every note, every phrase, every dynamic. He could hear the orchestral parts, could feel the keys under his fingers, could sense the emotional arc of the entire piece, and then the stage manager was calling his name. "Isaiah Brooks, you're up next." Isaiah stood, stretched his fingers, rolled his shoulders, took 3 deep breaths. This was it. Everything had been leading to this moment. He walked toward the stage entrance and heard the announcer's voice echoing through the hall. "For our final performance of the evening, please welcome Isaiah Brooks, who will perform Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3 in D minor, Opus 30, with recorded orchestral accompaniment." The curtain parted, and Isaiah Brooks walked into his destiny. The lights hit Isaiah like a physical force, bright and hot and overwhelming. For a split second, his vision swam, and he could barely see the audience beyond the glare. 400 faces, shadowed and expectant. The concert hall was packed. Word had spread about Professor Hartwell's challenge, and people wanted to witness it. Students, faculty, even some people from the wider Boston music community. In the front row, Professor Hartwell sat with her clipboard, her expression composed and professional. Next to her was the Dean of Music. Several other faculty members filled the nearby seats. Somewhere in the back, Isaiah knew Samuel was watching, believing. The Steinway Concert Grand waited at center stage, its black surface gleaming under the lights. It looked like a beautiful, dangerous animal, powerful and unpredictable. Isaiah walked across the stage. His legs felt steady, now the nervousness transformed into something else. Anticipation. Readiness. He'd walked this walk in his mind 1,000 times. Now he was just following the path he'd already laid. He reached the piano bench, sat down, adjusted the height with practiced precision. The hall was silent, except for the sound of 400 people breathing, waiting. Isaiah looked at the keys. Ivory and ebony, black and white. The oldest dichotomy, the most fundamental contrast. But when played together, they created something beyond color. They created music. He placed his hands in position, hovering over the keys, not touching yet, just there, present, ready. He thought of his father, Marcus Brooks, who'd worked in an automotive plant and played piano in his spare time, who'd taught his son that music was a language that transcended words, who'd died too young but lived long enough to plant a seed that had grown into this moment. He thought of his mother, Patricia Brooks, who cleaned offices so her son could chase a dream, who believed in him even when belief seemed irrational, who loved him fiercely and unconditionally. He thought of Samuel, who saw himself in a struggling student and chose to fight one more battle, to chase one more dream, to prove that talent and determination could still matter in an unjust world. And he thought of himself, Isaiah Brooks, 19 years old, from Detroit's East Side, standing in one of the most prestigious music conservatories in the world, about to attempt what many considered impossible. The recorded orchestral introduction began, the soft, mysterious opening chords of Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto, 8 bars of orchestra building tension, preparing for the moment when the piano would enter. Isaiah counted the bars. His breath slowed. His mind quieted. Everything else fell away. The audience, the stakes, Professor Hartwell's judgment, his own fears. There was only the music now. Only the conversation between his hands and the keys. Only the truth he was about to tell. The piano entrance came. The iconic 8-note melody that would repeat and develop throughout the entire concerto. A simple melody made profound through context and development. Isaiah's right hand descended to the keys and the first notes emerged. Clear, confident, perfect. The melody sang out across the hall, and something shifted in the atmosphere. The audience leaned forward collectively. This wasn't tentative. This wasn't uncertain. This was the sound of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Isaiah's left hand joined, adding harmonic depth. The right hand took the melody higher, more insistent. The music was building, the simple theme becoming more complex, more urgent. Professor Hartwell's pen paused over her clipboard. She'd been ready to start noting mistakes, but there were no mistakes. Not yet. The first movement of Rachmaninoff's Third is a marathon of technical difficulty and emotional intensity. It requires hands that can stretch ninths and tenths comfortably. It demands stamina to maintain intensity for 15 minutes. It needs interpretive maturity to navigate the balance between romantic expressiveness and structural clarity. Isaiah had all of it. His hands flew across the keys during the rapid passages, every note crystalline and precise. In the lyrical sections, he brought out inner voices that many pianists missed, creating layers of sound that felt orchestral despite coming from a single instrument. When the music demanded power, he unleashed it without harshness. When it needed delicacy, his touch became impossibly light. He wasn't just playing the notes, he was inhabiting the music, becoming it. The exile's longing for home, the artist's struggle for expression, the universal human need to be heard, to be understood, to matter. The first movement crescendoed to its conclusion, a powerful cascade of chords and octaves that shook the very air of the hall. The last chord rang out, and even though protocol said not to applaud between movements, several people couldn't help themselves. Quick, involuntary gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience. Isaiah didn't pause. Moving immediately into the second movement, the intermezzo. This is the emotional heart of the concerto, a meditation on memory and loss. Where the first movement was fire, this was water. Reflective, deep, profound. He played it thinking of his father's funeral, the empty chair at the kitchen table afterward, his mother's quiet tears when she thought Isaiah wasn't watching. The way grief doesn't announce itself with trumpets, but seeps in, slowly changing everything it touches. The music captured all of it. The audience sat in absolute stillness, afraid to break the spell. Even Professor Hartwell had stopped taking notes. She was simply listening now, her professional composure beginning to crack. In the back row, Samuel wept silently, tears streaming down his face. This was what he'd hoped for, but hadn't quite dared to believe. This was vindication, not just for Isaiah, but for himself. For every dream deferred, for every talent dismissed, for every person told they didn't belong. The intermezzo concluded with a quiet, questioning phrase that hung in the air like mist. A moment of perfect silence. And then the third movement exploded into existence. The finale of Rachmaninoff's Third is where many pianists fall apart. It's relentlessly fast, technically brutal, and after 25 minutes of playing, physical and mental fatigue become real factors. The famous Ossia cadenza, an even more difficult alternative passage that Rachmaninoff composed for pianists who wanted an extra challenge, is 1.5 minutes of some of the hardest piano music ever written. Isaiah had chosen to play the Ossia. Because if you're going to do something Samuel had told him, do it all the way. His fingers became a blur. Chromatic runs, leaping octaves, chords that required impossible stretches, all of it at a tempo that left no room for error. One slip, one hesitation, and the whole thing would collapse. But Isaiah didn't slip. His months of training with Samuel had built stamina and technique that served him now. His hands knew what to do without conscious thought. His body moved with the music helping to generate power and accuracy. His mind stayed focused on the interpretive arc, even as his fingers executed thousands of individual notes. The Ossia cadenza arrived. This was the moment, the peak, the place where Isaiah would either triumph completely or reveal his limitations. He launched into it with absolute commitment. The notes came so fast, they almost blurred into a continuous sound. His hands crossed and uncrossed. His fingers hammered out rhythms that seemed impossible for human anatomy. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The lights felt hotter. The keys seemed to fight back, requiring more force, more precision, more everything. But he'd practiced this section until his fingers bled. Had played it perfect 20 times in a row in Samuel's office. Had visualized it hundreds of times. His body knew this music in the same way it knew how to breathe. The cadenza built to its climax, a series of crashing chords that led back into the orchestral re-entry. Isaiah hammered out the final chord of the cadenza and felt something in his chest release. He'd done it. The hardest part was behind him. The final 2 minutes of the concerto were a victory lap. The themes from earlier movements returned transformed. The exile finds peace. The artist finds expression. The struggle resolves not in simple happiness, but in hard-won understanding. Isaiah shaped the final phrases with care, bringing out the bittersweet quality of Rachmaninoff's conclusion. This wasn't a happy ending. It was an honest one, acknowledging loss while affirming life, accepting pain while choosing to continue. The final chord, a massive ringing D minor chord that used almost every note on the piano. Isaiah's hands came down with controlled force, and the sound filled the hall like a declaration. And then silence. Complete, absolute silence. Isaiah's hands remained on the keys, not quite believing it was over. 40 minutes of music, the most difficult piano concerto in the standard repertoire. And he'd played it not perfectly, perhaps, but close enough that only a trained professional could spot the tiny imperfections. And even those felt intentional, felt human, felt real. He lifted his hands from the keys. The silence continued for one more heartbeat, and then the hall exploded. The audience erupted to their feet. Not polite standing, not obligatory recognition. A thunderous, genuine, overwhelming ovation. People were shouting, crying. Students hugged each other. Faculty members stood with expressions of stunned disbelief. Emma was sobbing in the third row. Preston was on his feet, applauding with genuine enthusiasm. Charlotte had her hands over her mouth, shaking her head in amazement. And Samuel was standing in the back, applauding until his hands must have hurt, tears openly streaming down his face, a smile so wide it looked like it might split his face in two. Isaiah stood and bowed his legs, shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. The applause continued, grew louder. Someone started shouting, "Bravo!" and others picked it up. "Bravo! Bravo!" Isaiah bowed again, overwhelmed. He looked out at the audience and finally let himself smile. Not a proud smile, not a triumphant one, just a smile of pure, exhausted relief. He'd done it. Actually done it. His eyes found the front row, found Professor Hartwell. She was standing because everyone was standing, but she wasn't applauding. Her hands hung at her sides. Her face was pale. Her clipboard had fallen to the floor, forgotten. And her expression, it wasn't anger, wasn't dismissal. It was something Isaiah had never seen from her before. It was recognition. Unwilling, uncomfortable recognition that she had been wrong. Completely, utterly, undeniably wrong. The Dean of Music was applauding enthusiastically, leaning over to say something to Professor Hartwell that Isaiah couldn't hear. She nodded numbly, still looking shell-shocked. Isaiah bowed one final time and walked off stage. The applause followed him into the wings, continuing even after the curtain closed. He made it to the backstage area before his knees buckled. He caught himself against a wall, breathing hard, his entire body shaking. He'd held it together for the performance, but now that it was over, the emotional and physical toll hit all at once. Samuel found him there, wrapped him in a fierce hug. "You did it, son. You actually did it." That was perfection. That was everything we worked for, and more. Isaiah hugged him back, finding his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you for believing in me, for teaching me. No." Samuel interrupted. "Thank you. Thank you for letting an old man redeem his past. Thank you for being what I couldn't be. Thank you for proving that we were right all along." They stood there, two black men, in a predominantly white institution, holding on to each other and crying tears of joy and relief and vindication. From the stage area, they could hear the audience still applauding, still celebrating what they'd just witnessed. The announcer was trying to quiet them down to conclude the recital, but people weren't ready to let the moment go. Emma burst into the backstage area, followed by Charlotte and Marcus and a dozen other students. They surrounded Isaiah, all trying to congratulate him at once. The backstage became a celebration, hugs and high fives and excited chatter. That was incredible. I can't believe what I just saw. How did you even learn that piece? You made Rachmaninoff look easy? Preston arrived last, a genuine smile on his face. He extended his hand to Isaiah. Man, I owe you an apology for this whole semester, for not speaking up when I should have. He shook his head. That was the best piano playing I've ever heard in person. Seriously. Isaiah shook his hand, appreciating the sentiment. Thanks, Preston. That means a lot. The celebration continued for several minutes until the backstage door opened and Professor Hartwell walked in. The room fell silent. Students parted to let her through. She walked slowly toward Isaiah, her expression unreadable now. She'd regained some of her composure, but there was still something shaken in her eyes. Isaiah stood straight, meeting her gaze directly. He wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever she had to say, he'd already won. The music had spoken. The truth had been told. She stopped in front of him, looked at him for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, so different from her usual commanding tone. Mr. Brooks, that was an extraordinary performance. She paused, seeming to struggle for words. I need to speak with you, privately, tomorrow, if possible. My office. Yes, ma'am, Isaiah said. She nodded, then looked around at the assembled students. You should all be proud of your performances tonight. This was an excellent recital overall. The semester grades will be posted on Monday. And then she left, walking out with her shoulders slightly hunched, looking older than she had at the beginning of the evening. After she was gone, the celebration resumed, but Isaiah felt oddly disconnected from it. He'd achieved what he set out to achieve. He'd proven himself beyond any doubt. But instead of feeling triumphant, he just felt tired, and a little sad in a way he couldn't quite explain. Samuel seemed to understand. He pulled Isaiah aside once more. How you feeling, I don't know. Good, but also, I thought this would feel different. I thought proving her wrong would feel like victory, but it just feels empty. That's because you're a good person, Samuel said gently. A lesser person would be celebrating her humiliation, but you see it for what it is, a tragedy, a talented, knowledgeable professor who let prejudice blind her to truth. She lost more tonight than you gained. You know that, right? Isaiah nodded slowly. What do you think she wants to talk about tomorrow? I imagine she's going to offer some kind of apology, or at least an acknowledgement. The question is, what are you going to do with it? What do you mean? You have power now. Real power. You proved something tonight that goes beyond one performance. You challenged the system and won. Now you get to decide what to do with that victory. You can accept her apology and move on. Or you can push for real change. Make sure other students don't go through what you went through. Isaiah thought about that. About the larger implications. About all the Isaiah Brookses who might come after him. I need to think about it, he said finally. That's wise. But whatever you decide, know this. You've already changed things, just by refusing to give up, just by being excellent despite everything. You've made a difference. The celebration eventually wound down. Students drifted away. Isaiah changed out of his suit back into comfortable clothes. He walked across campus in the December cold Boston, preparing for winter, his breath visible in the night air. He called his mother. She answered immediately. Baby, how did it go? I've been sitting here praying all evening, Mama, Isaiah said, and his voice cracked. Mama, I did it. I really did it. Tell me everything, every detail. And he did. He told her about the performance, about the applause, about Professor Hartwell's face, about Samuel's tears. He talked until his voice was hoarse, and she listened to it all, laughing and crying and praising God. "Your daddy would be so proud," she said when he finally finished. "I wish he could have been there." "I think maybe he was," Isaiah said softly. "In a way." After they hung up, Isaiah sat on a bench outside his dorm, looking up at the Boston sky. The stars were faint through the light pollution, but they were there. Always there, even when you couldn't see them. He'd climbed his mountain, played his Rachmaninoff, proved his point. But he realized something sitting there in the cold. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the end of one chapter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, new opportunities to choose who he wanted to be and what he wanted to fight for. But tonight, just for tonight, he let himself feel the simple satisfaction of a goal achieved, a promise kept, a dream realized. Tonight, Isaiah Brooks had shown the world what he was capable of, and the world had finally listened. Isaiah woke late the next morning, his body aching in ways he didn't know were possible. His hands were stiff fingers, slightly swollen from the exertion of 40 minutes of Rachmaninoff. His shoulders hurt. His back hurt. Even his jaw hurt from unconsciously clenching it during the performance. But he felt lighter than he had in months. Preston was already awake, unusual for a Saturday morning. He was sitting at his desk, laptop open, but he turned when he heard Isaiah stirring. "There's the conquering hero," Preston said with a grin. "How you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck?" Isaiah admitted, sitting up slowly. "I bet. Hey, you should see this." Preston turned his laptop around. On the screen was the Berklee Student Forum, and the top thread was titled, "Isaiah Brooks Destroys Rachmaninoff Video." Someone had recorded last night's performance on their phone. The video had been viewed over 2,000 times already, and the comments were overwhelmingly positive. "Best performance I've seen at Berklee in 4 years. Seriously, how is he only a freshman?" Professor Hartwell's face at the end, though. "This is what real talent looks like. I'm a senior piano major, and I couldn't play this with 5 more years of practice." Isaiah scrolled through the comments, feeling surreal. Just yesterday, he'd been the student everyone knew Professor Hartwell was targeting. Now he was, famous, at least on campus. "There's more," Preston said. "Check your email." Isaiah pulled out his phone and opened his email. His inbox was flooded. Messages from students Heed Hai Chuyen Sang, Book 8. Deck 28, never met. From faculty members, from the Dean of Music, from people claiming to be talent scouts and concert promoters, though those were probably spam. One email stood out. From Professor Hartwell. Timestamp 3:47 a.m. The subject line read, "Tomorrow, 11 a.m., my office." Isaiah's stomach clenched. This was it. The conversation Samuel had predicted. He showered, dressed, and went to find breakfast. The dining hall was more crowded than usual for a Saturday. As Isaiah walked in, conversations paused. People turned to look at him. And then spontaneously someone started clapping. Others joined in. Within seconds, half the dining hall was applauding. Isaiah stood frozen, overwhelmed, until Emma appeared at his elbow. "Come on, superstar. Let's get you some food before you pass out from embarrassment." They found a table in the corner. Emma was joined by Charlotte and a few other students from the advanced classical piano class. They all wanted to talk about the performance, to relive it, to understand how he'd done it. "Seriously, though," Charlotte said, "where did you learn to play like that? That piece is insane. I've been playing piano since I was 4 and I wouldn't even attempt it." Isaiah thought about Samuel, about all those nights in the basement custodial office, about the secret training that had made last night possible. Part of him wanted to tell them. But another part felt protective of that time. It was his and Samuel's, their private victory. "I practiced," he said simply. "A lot." "That's the understatement of the year," Marcus laughed. At 10:30, Isaiah excused himself and headed toward Professor Hartwell's office. The walk across campus felt different now. People smiled at him, nodded recognition. A few even stopped to congratulate him. It was disorienting, this sudden visibility after a semester of feeling invisible. He arrived at her office at 10:55, sat on the bench outside gathering his thoughts. He'd played this conversation in his mind various ways. Would she apologize? Make excuses, offer some kind of explanation? At exactly 11 a.m., the door opened. Professor Hartwell stood there, and Isaiah was struck by how different she looked. She'd always seemed so imposing, so in control. But now she looked smaller, tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. "Mr. Brooks, please come in." Her office was exactly what you'd expect. Walls lined with books on music theory and piano technique, framed degrees and awards, photos of Professor Hartwell with famous musicians, a beautiful print of a vintage Steinway Grand. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Isaiah sat. She sat. They looked at each other for a long moment. "Would you like tea?" she asked finally. "Coffee?" "No, thank you, ma'am." She nodded, seemed to steel herself. "Mr. Brooks, I asked you here because I owe you an apology. A significant apology. And an explanation, though I'm not sure it will make things better." Isaiah waited. Let her continue. "Last night you performed at a level I have rarely witnessed in my 4 decades of teaching. Your interpretation of Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto was not just technically proficient, it was artistically mature, emotionally profound. It was, in short, extraordinary." She paused, looking down at her hands. They were older hands, Isaiah noticed, veined and spotted with age, but still elegant. Pianist's hands. "I have been teaching at Berklee since 1985, she continued. "I have trained hundreds of pianists. Many have gone on to successful careers, some have become quite famous, but very few have possessed the combination of technical skill and emotional depth that you demonstrated last night." Another pause. This was clearly difficult for her. "Which makes my treatment of you this semester inexcusable. I graded you unfairly, critiqued you more harshly than others, denied you opportunities that you deserved. I did this because," she took a breath, "because I let my own prejudices and assumptions cloud my professional judgment." There it was. The admission. I convinced myself I was maintaining standards, that I was being rigorous. But the truth is, I looked at you and made assumptions based on your background, your race, your lack of formal training. I decided consciously or unconsciously that you didn't belong in the world of classical piano. And I acted on that decision in ways that were unfair and unprofessional. She finally looked up, meeting his eyes. "I am deeply sorry, Mr. Brooks. What I did was wrong. You deserved better. You deserved what every student deserves, to be judged on your merit, not on my preconceptions." Isaiah let the words settle. He'd imagined this moment, but reality felt different than imagination. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt sad. For her, for himself, for all the students who'd been treated this way before, and would be treated this way again. "Thank you for saying that," he said, finally. "It helps. But ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Why did you assume those things? You're a smart woman, an educated woman. You've been teaching for decades. How did you not see it?" Professor Hartwell was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "Because I was taught those assumptions. Not explicitly, not consciously, but through 1,000 small messages throughout my own education and career. The classical music world has been historically very white, very European, very exclusive. And people like me, people who succeeded in that world, internalized the idea that there was a right way to approach classical music. A right background, a right preparation. She gestured vaguely at the photos on her wall. I was privileged. Private lessons from age 5. Access to the best instruments, the best teachers. Summer programs in Europe. When I look at students who had what I had, I see their potential immediately. But when I see students like you from different backgrounds, different preparation, my unconscious mind whispers that they're not serious, not committed, not truly talented. And I'm ashamed to say I listened to those whispers. Even when the evidence contradicted them, Isaiah asked, "You heard me play that first day, in the practice room. Other students told you I was good, but you still, I know." Her voice cracked slightly. "I know, and I have no excuse. I saw what I expected to see instead of what was actually there. That's the insidious nature of bias, Mr. Brooks. It blinds you to truth, even when truth is obvious." They sat in silence for a moment. "What happens now?" Isaiah asked. "Several things. First, I will be submitting a revised grade for your semester work. Your actual performance deserves an A+. Second, I'm recommending you for every prestigious opportunity that comes through this department. You should have been in that masterclass. You should have had access to everything I denied you." She pulled out a folder from her desk drawer. "I've also spoken with the dean. I'm taking a sabbatical next semester. I need to do some serious self-reflection. And the department is implementing new oversight procedures to prevent this kind of bias going forward. You're leaving." Isaiah was surprised to find he felt conflicted about this. Temporarily, with the understanding that when I return, I need to do better. Be better. The dean made it clear that my behavior this semester was unacceptable. I'm lucky I still have a position. She handed him the folder. "These are letters of recommendation for conservatories, for competitions, for summer programs. I've written honestly about your abilities. I owe you that much." Isaiah took the folder, but didn't open it. "Professor Hartwell, can I tell you something my mother said to me this semester? Please. She said that the piano doesn't care what color your hands are, that music is bigger than prejudice, that if I just kept being excellent, eventually the truth would matter more than anyone's assumptions." He paused. "I held on to that when things got hard, when I wanted to quit. And last night proved she was right." Professor Hartwell's eyes were glistening now. "Your mother is a wise woman, and she raised an extraordinary son. But here's the thing," Isaiah continued. "I shouldn't have had to be extraordinary just to be treated fairly. I shouldn't have had to master Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto just to prove I belonged here. The students who come after me, they deserve better than that. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to work to make sure they get better. But Mr. Brooks, I hope you understand your excellence matters beyond this situation. You have real talent, world-class talent. Don't let my failures diminish that." Isaiah nodded slowly. "I don't plan to. But I also don't plan to let this happen to someone else if I can help it." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want to be involved in making sure things change. Not just here, but in classical music generally. I want to help other students like me. Be a voice for people who've been shut out of this world. Use what happened to me to make things better." A small smile appeared on Professor Hartwell's face. "I think you'll do exactly that. And Isaiah? May I call you Isaiah?" He nodded. "Isaiah, if there's anything I can do to support that work, I will. Consider me an imperfect ally, but an ally nonetheless." The meeting concluded shortly after. As Isaiah stood to leave, Professor Hartwell spoke one more time. "Your father, the one who taught you piano, tell me about him." Isaiah turned back, surprised. He was a factory worker, played piano for fun at church at home. Nothing professional. He died when I was 8. He gave you something precious. A love of music free from all the baggage and politics and prejudice. In some ways, your late start was a gift. You learned to play for joy before you learned to play for judgment. That's rare. And beautiful. I hope you never lose it. Isaiah felt his throat tighten. Thank you, ma'am, for saying that. And for the apology. It couldn't have been easy. It was easier than living with what I'd done without acknowledging it. Isaiah walked out of her office feeling strange. Not angry anymore. Not vindicated exactly. Just resolved. Determined. Clear about what came next. He had one more conversation to have. Isaiah found Samuel in the basement in the custodial office that had been their sanctuary. Samuel was organizing cleaning supplies, but he looked up with a huge smile when Isaiah entered. There he is. How'd it go with Hartwell? Isaiah sat down at the old upright piano, the one where he'd learned so much. She apologized. Really apologized. Said she let her prejudices blind her. That she graded me unfairly. That I deserved better. How do you feel about that? I'm not sure. It helps, I guess. But it doesn't erase what happened. Doesn't change that I had to work twice as hard just to be seen as half as good. Samuel nodded. That's the double-edged nature of these victories. You win, but you're tired from having to fight a battle you shouldn't have had to fight in the first place. She's taking a sabbatical. Said she needs to reflect. And she wrote me recommendation letters. Good. She should do all of that. What else? Isaiah turned on the piano bench to face Samuel fully. I want to do something more. I keep thinking about what you said, about using this victory to make change, but I don't know how. Samuel sat down heavily in his worn office chair. Let me tell you what I see. I see a talented young man who just proved something important. Not just that he can play piano, but that he won't be broken by injustice. That he'll fight back with excellence. That's powerful, Isaiah. That's a message other people need to hear. So what do I do with it? You keep going. You graduate. You pursue excellence. You become the pianist you're capable of being. And along the way, you reach back. You help other students who are going through what you went through. You speak up when you see injustice. You use your platform, and make no mistake, after last night you have a platform to advocate for change. I'm only 19. I'm just a freshman. Who's going to listen to me? Samuel laughed. Son, you just played Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto at a level that most professionals couldn't match. People are already listening. The question is, what are you going to say Isaiah thought about that? About his mother cleaning offices so he could be here. About his father teaching him on a church piano. About all the talented kids in Detroit and cities like it who would never get the chances he got. About Emma and Charlotte and the other students who'd supported him. About Samuel giving him the training he needed to succeed. I want to teach, he said suddenly. Eventually. Not right away, but someday. I want to teach students like me. Show them that they belong in this world. Help them navigate the obstacles I had to navigate. That's good. What else I want to perform? I want to play in venues where classical music isn't usually accessible. In communities where kids don't think piano is for people like them. I want to be visible in a way that makes other black kids think they can do this too. Keep going. I want to call out the bias when I see it. Not be quiet when professors or institutions or the industry treats students unfairly. I want to be uncomfortable if it means someone else doesn't have to suffer. Samuel was beaming now. That's it. That's exactly it. You're thinking bigger than just yourself. That's leadership, Isaiah. That's how you make change that lasts beyond one semester, one performance, one victory. They talked for another hour, planning and dreaming. Samuel shared names of organizations working on diversity in classical music. talked about programs that brought classical training to underserved communities, mentioned competitions and opportunities that could raise Isaiah's profile. But here's the most important thing Samuel said as their conversation wound down. Don't lose the joy. Don't let the fighting and the advocating make you forget why you love music in the first place. Play for your father's memory. Play for your own soul. The social justice work matters, but so does the art itself. Balance both. I will. Samuel, Isaiah struggled to find words big enough. You changed my life. You saw me when nobody else did. You believed in me. You gave me the tools I needed. I don't know how to thank you for that. You already did. Last night when you sat down at that piano and proved everything I believed about you. When you showed Victoria Hartwell and everyone else what black excellence looks like. That was my thank you. Watching you succeed after I failed. You didn't fail, Isaiah protested. You just got your success in a different form. Through me. Through other students you've probably helped over the years that I don't even know about. Samuel smiled sadly. Maybe you're right. Maybe my story wasn't meant to be about me performing. Maybe it was always meant to be about me teaching. Passing the torch. Making sure the next generation does better than mine did. I'm going to do something Isaiah said an idea forming. When I have my first professional recital, a real one in a real concert hall, I'm going to dedicate it to you. I'm going to tell everyone about the janitor at Berklee, who was really a master teacher, who saw potential where others saw problems. I'm going to make sure people know your name. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. Isaiah, I mean it. Samuel Gray, you're going to be known. Even if it's too late for your own performing career, people are going to know what you did for me, for students like me. They hugged again, both men crying freely now, not ashamed of the emotion. This was what love looked like. Not romantic love, but the love between teacher and student. Between someone who'd lost their dream and someone who'd achieved it in their place. Between two people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment and changed each other's lives. December in Boston turned bitter cold. Finals ended. Students scattered to their homes for winter break. The campus grew quiet. Isaiah stayed an extra few days helping his mother arrange to fly him home. His performance had led to several small paid opportunities that made the airfare possible. He spent his final evening at Berklee walking through the campus, reflecting on the semester that had changed everything. He stopped by the practice room where he'd first played Chopin, where Professor Hartwell had first dismissed him, sat at that same piano, played that same nocturne, but it sounded different now. Deeper, more confident, like he'd earned the right to play it. He visited Samuel's custodial office one last time. Samuel was there, of course, cleaning as always. Leaving tomorrow, Samuel asked. Yeah. Detroit for 3 weeks, then back for spring semester. You taking any of Hartwell's classes next semester? No. She'll be on sabbatical anyway. But I signed up for advanced jazz piano. Thought I should explore other styles. Samuel grinned. Smart. Classical is beautiful, but jazz will teach you freedom. Improvisation. How to trust yourself without a score. Will you help me with it? Son, I'll help you with anything you want to learn. As long as I'm at this school, I'm your teacher. That doesn't change just because the semester's over. They made plans to continue their work together. More repertoire, more techniques, building on what they'd started. As Isaiah prepared to leave, Samuel stopped him. I got you something. For Christmas, or Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, or just because. He handed Isaiah a wrapped package. Inside was a book, a first edition of a Rachmaninoff biography signed by the author, and tucked inside a photograph. Samuel, 45 years younger, sitting at a piano on a stage mid-performance, his face alight with joy. "That's me at my Berklee senior recital," Samuel explained. 1979. 6 months before I dropped out. I want you to have it. To remember that this music, this path we're on, it's bigger than any one person's journey. You're carrying something forward for both of us now." Isaiah stared at the photo. Young Samuel looked so much like Isaiah felt. Passionate, determined, full of dreams. It broke his heart and filled it simultaneously. "I'll treasure this," he promised. "Always." The flight home was surreal. Isaiah had left Detroit as a hopeful but uncertain freshman. He returned as someone who'd proven himself, who'd overcome, who'd triumphed. But he also returned as someone who understood the cost of that triumph. His mother picked him up at the airport. She'd taken the day off work, something she almost never did. When she saw him coming through arrivals, she burst into tears. They held each other in the middle of the Detroit airport, both crying, both laughing, both overwhelmed with gratitude and relief and joy. "Let me look at you," she said, pulling back but keeping her hands on his shoulders. "You look different, older, stronger. It was a hard semester, Mama. I know it was, baby. But you made it through. You more than made it through. You conquered." The drive home took them through the old neighborhood, past the church with the piano where his father had taught him, past the rec center where he'd practiced, past their apartment building, small and worn, but full of memories. "I got something for you," Patricia said as they pulled up. "Come inside." In their tiny living room covered with a sheet was something large. Isaiah pulled the sheet off and gasped. A piano. Not an expensive one, not a concert grand, but a nice, upright, well-maintained, tuned, and ready to play. "Mama, how did you—" "I've been saving. Every extra dollar. And some people from the church pitched in when they heard about your recital. Mr. Richardson, your old music teacher, he found this one and negotiated the price. We all wanted you to have a real instrument at home. For when you visit. For when you practice. For when you just need to play." Isaiah ran his hand over the keys. Pressed middle C. The tone was warm and full. Not Berklee's Steinways, but beautiful in its own way. He sat down and began to play. Not Rachmaninoff, not Beethoven, not any of the pieces that had defined his semester. Instead, he played the simple melodies his father had taught him when he was 5 years old. Nursery rhymes, church hymns, the music of his childhood. His mother sat on their worn couch crying happy tears, watching her son play. "Your daddy's here," she whispered. "I can feel him. He's so proud of you, Isaiah. So proud." And Isaiah felt it too. Not just his father's presence, but the presence of everyone who'd believed in him. His mother, Samuel, Emma, Charlotte, even Professor Hartwell in her flawed and complicated way. He played until the sun set, the Detroit winter sky turning purple and orange outside their window. He played until his hands were tired and his heart was full. He played because he could. Because he'd earned the right. Because the piano, as his father had told him so long ago, didn't care about anything except whether you could make it sing. And Isaiah Brooks could make it sing. The program for the Boston Symphony Hall recital was simple and elegant. Isaiah Brooks Piano, an evening of Rachmaninoff and Gershwin, dedicated to Samuel Gray teacher and friend Isaiah, stood backstage, 22 years old now, about to walk out for his first professional solo recital. He'd graduated from Berklee with highest honors, won several prestigious competitions, performed with orchestras, built a reputation as one of the most exciting young pianists in America. But this recital was different. This was personal. In the audience sat his mother, flown in first class by the sponsors. Beside her, Emma, now a successful vocalist. Charlotte pursuing her doctorate. Marcus teaching at a music school in California, but back for this special night. Preston was there too, having become an unlikely friend. He'd changed over the years, become more aware, more humble. They'd both grown, and in the front row in a seat of honor sat Samuel Gray, retired now from custodial work, finally acknowledged as the teacher he'd always been. Isaiah had made sure of that, had told his story in interviews, in acceptance speeches, in program notes. Samuel had been embarrassed by the attention at first, but eventually accepted it with grace. Next to Samuel sat Professor Victoria Hartwell. She'd returned from her sabbatical changed, more humble, more aware. She'd become an advocate for diversity in classical music, using her platform to address the biases she'd once embodied. She and Isaiah had developed a complicated but respectful relationship. Not quite friendship, but something like mutual understanding. The stage manager gave Isaiah the signal. He walked out to thunderous applause. The hall was sold out. 2,000 people who'd come to hear the young pianist who'd become known not just for his technical brilliance, but for his advocacy, his teaching, his commitment to making classical music accessible to everyone. He sat at the Boston Symphony Hall's magnificent Steinway, the same hall where legends had played. He adjusted the bench, placed his hands over the keys, and he thought just for a moment of a young boy in Detroit, of a battered church piano, of a father who taught him that music was bigger than prejudice, of a mother who sacrificed everything, of a teacher who saw him when no one else would. He began to play. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto. Number 3, the piece that had changed his life, the weapon that had won his war, the music that had proven his worth. But now it wasn't about proving anything. Now it was about sharing, about beauty, about the universal language that transcends color and class and circumstance. He played it better than he had that night at Berklee. 3 years of growth, of refinement, of deepening understanding. Every note was intentional. Every phrase was poetry. Every silence spoke volumes. When he finished, the audience didn't just applaud. They wept. They stood. They celebrated not just the performance, but everything it represented. A young black pianist claiming his rightful space in a world that had too often excluded people like him. A story of perseverance and triumph and change. But more than that, they celebrated music itself, the power it had to move, to transform, to reveal truth. After the bows, after the encores, after the standing ovation that seemed to last forever, Isaiah found Samuel backstage. "You did it," Samuel said simply. "Everything I dreamed, everything I hoped." "We did it," Isaiah corrected. "Together." They hugged, and Isaiah realized that this moment, this success, this victory, this joy was sweeter because it was shared, because it meant something beyond himself. Later that night, after the reception, after the congratulations, after everyone had gone home, Isaiah stood alone on the empty Boston Symphony Hall stage. The lights were off, except for a single work light. The seats were empty. The hall was silent. He sat down at the piano one more time. And he played just for himself, the simple melody his father had taught him when he was 5. The first music he'd ever learned. It echoed in the empty hall, pure and clear and true. And Isaiah Brooks smiled, knowing that he'd found his place in the world. Not because anyone had given him permission, not because he'd proven himself to people who doubted him, but because he'd stayed true to the music, to the dream, to the belief that talent and determination and love could overcome any obstacle. The piano doesn't care what color your hands are. The piano only cares if you can make it sing. And Isaiah Brooks had learned to sing.